In this mini lecture, we're going to be discussing how to outline for your upcoming speech, and we did cover this in Module 4, so this is just going to be a little bit of review, but I want to talk about the 3 types of outlines that I'll be expecting you to use for creating your speech in this class, your major speeches in this class, I should say. So now that you've chosen your topic, which you did in Module 6, you've gathered some credible research and done some preliminary research on your topics and found some reputable sources. You've read through those sources, so you have a good understanding of your topic at this point. And you've taken some notes and you have a general idea of what you want to talk about in your speech. So now, what do? In an extemporaneous delivery, we use a delivery outline, right, when we deliver the speech, which will be your note cards. But believe it or not, this is not the first outline that you create. You will be creating 3 different outlines in this class, and you're going to start with the working outline. Then you'll move into your preparation outline or your practice outline. Even though this is a formal typewritten outline that you'll hand in, it is the outline that you will use to practice your speech. It's how you will gain control over your speech. And then finally, you'll create your delivery outline, and this is your note cards that you'll use when you're actually delivering the speech. Your working outline is just, it can be typed or handwritten sketch of what you find as you read through your sources. And this may change as you formulate your speech plan. But generally, it includes the main points and a couple of necessary subpoints. And it should also include your topic and your specific purpose. So let's look at an example of what you might do for your working outline. And actually, I'll let you practice this in your discussion this week. So let's say my topic is growing your own vegetables. So I'm going to narrow that topic down and tell you the purpose. And my purpose is that I want to inform my audience about the 3 easiest plants to grow in your backyard garden. That's my purpose for this speech. In doing my research, I found that 3 of those would be green beans, tomatoes, and cucumbers. So I took that topic of growing your own vegetables and I broke it up into 3 distinct subtopics. So I'm using a topical organizational strategy here. And then I also went a little bit further to focus in on some subpoints to use under each main point. I'm going to talk about the types, planting instructions, and how to eat for each of those subtopics, right? So this would be an example of what you might do for your working outline. And then next important step when you're thinking about your working outline is to write out and finalize your central idea or your thesis. And in this class, when I read your central idea, I should know exactly what the points are that you're going to talk about in your speech. What are those 3 main points that you're going to be developing? So in my case, I want my audience to know about 3 vegetables that are easy to grow in a backyard garden, including green beans, tomatoes, and cucumbers. Perfect. I read it. I know what I'm going to be hearing in the speech. That's a good central idea. Once you have your working outline completed, you would move on to your preparation outline. This outline is much more detailed and it's longer than your working outline. And I also call this your practice outline because this is the outline that you will use to learn your speech and gain control over the organization of your speech, the flow of your speech, and the content of your speech. It will include your topic listed at the top, your specific purpose, and central idea. Those 3 items will all be located at the top of your preparation outline. These are not 3 these first three things aren't something that you would say in a speech, right? You start off with your introduction, but those three things are important so that as you're writing your preparation outline, you can refer back to the specific purpose and central idea and make sure that you are doing what you said you were going to be doing in what you initially set out to do. It will include your introduction with, I'm looking for all of those points in the introduction that we talked about in Module 4, and we'll review those in this mini lecture. Your body, remember main points, subpoints. Remember that visual framework that we talked about with Roman numerals and letters and numbers. It should be very well organized. It will also include your conclusion and the components of the conclusion that I'm looking for. Again, I'll review that later in this mini lecture. It will include a works cited page, transition statements, and remember you're going to be providing transitions from the intro to the body between each main point and then from the body to the conclusion. And your oral citations, you want to write those out when you borrow information, the way that you will say them in the speech. I'm not looking for how you would do in-text citations in a paper. I'm looking for how you would cite this in a speech. Okay, so remember what we learned in Module 3 about orally citing sources. For now, let's focus on the body of the speech. So you should never, ever write your outline in paragraphs. I see this so often with preparation outlines. It's basically just like a main point and then multiple large, long paragraphs. Why don't we do that? The reason that we don't do that is because how can you learn a speech by reading large chunks of information like that? It's really hard to gain control over the content if it's not broken down. But you do want to use full sentences. Your main points should be in full sentences, and all of your subpoints should be in full sentences, and as well as your introduction and your conclusion and your transition statements. Everything should be written out in full sentences, but chunked in the way that we talked about with your outline structure, right? It's because if you have smaller chunks of information, it's just easier to learn. So this would be an example of that structure and that visual framework that I'm looking for. I'm looking for main points to be in Roman numerals. I'm looking for first subpoints to be capital letters, second subpoints to be numbers, and if you happen to have a third subpoint, that would be a lowercase letter. I'm looking for transitions to be between each main point and each part of the speech, and you would put parentheses around them like this example shows you. And remember, if you take note, so this is between main point 1 and main point 2, and let's say this speech, just for this example, only had 2 main points, which yours will all have 3, but let's just say for the sake of argument, you only had 2. You also want to remember that you're transitioning between speech parts, not just between each main point, but speech parts. So from the intro to the body and the body to the conclusion, so that your speech has flow and so that your audience can follow your speech. The main points are the important parts of your speech, right? Those contain the sort of general information of what you're going to be talking about in that point. And then subpoints are the supporting details of your main points. And this is where you are going to put any information that you get from your sources. So this is going to come from all of that supporting material, all of that research that you've done. That's going to go here in your subpoints. And then transitions link your speech together, and they serve as a roadmap or a GPS for your speech because that's helps your audience follow along. When you're creating your main points, and this is just review, but you want to make sure you're using complete sentences. Each main point should only have one idea. You should not be writing your main points as questions, right? They should be declarative sentences. Your main points should be fairly balanced. And using parallelism helps. So using similar words and phrases for each main point can help your audience to follow along. And it helps us to distinguish between your main points because they're worded in a similar way. Developing your subpoints. This is where you're going to be filling in the content that gives your speech that substance that we're looking for. They elaborate and add detail to each main point. These can be facts, statistic, testimony, example, all of that support material that we've talked about up to this point in the class. Your subpoints can have subpoints. And again, using parallelism and subpoints can also be helpful to the listener. It's not always necessary, but it is helpful. So if you see that working outline example from this lesson, I did that when I talked about growing your own vegetables. You can find lots of examples of preparation outlines in your text. I always provide student examples in D2L. So there's a student example for the informative speech in your Module 6 under speech resources, and I'll do the same for your persuasive speech as well. The delivery outline is your third and final outline that you'll create in this class. And this is just that shortened version of your preparation outline. And I have an example of a delivery outline on note cards in Module 6 that you should review. You should never deliver a speech from the full sentence preparation outline because you will end up reading the outline and then you're no longer giving an extemporaneous speech. You're reading to the audience and we will fall asleep. So please, please take the time to create this delivery outline. And you should create your delivery outline on note cards and then practice just with that delivery outline to make sure that you have enough information, you have gained control over the speech as you were practicing with your preparation outline. So this lesson has focused on types of outlines basically and the speech body. Now, introductions and conclusions we covered very extensively in Module 4, so you may want to review. The same with transition statements and orally citing sources. So make sure that you are reviewing that information because it's really, 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 really important that you understand that. And just a final quick review about your introduction and your conclusion. I'm looking for these elements in your intro. I'm looking for a strong attention getter. I'm looking for audience relevance. Are you telling the audience what's in it for them? Why should they listen to this? Are you establishing your own credibility? And are you providing them with a preview of your speech? And in the conclusion, I'm looking for 3 things. I'm looking for your summary statement. So you're reviewing your main points. You are giving me an audience response statement. How do you want the audience to respond to this information? What do you hope that we got out of this speech? And then a lasting impact with a wow statement. And last quick review on transition statements. As I said before, they are links between parts of your speech, between your introduction and body, between each main point where you're using an internal summary and an internal preview. So you're summarizing the point you just covered and you're previewing the point that's coming up next. And from the body to the conclusion. So you're saying in conclusion or in closing. And oral citations, just as you cite in a paper, you'll be citing sources in a speech. It's just done in a little bit different way.